Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole from the 4th District of Oklahoma, and this is another one of our weekly chats on what's happening in Congress. Actually, nothing's happening in Congress right now because Congress is on recess, but a lot's certainly happening across the country. I've spent the last couple of weeks traveling around the district, really for the first time in about a year. I've had the opportunity to visit Lawton. I'm actually broadcasting to you from the Duncan municipal building. I've had a great day here in Duncan, been to Ardmore, been to Pauls Valley, all through the northern part of the district, Moore, Norman, Midwest City. And I can tell you, life is coming back to normal. It's pretty extraordinary, honestly, as you sit down and talk to Oklahomans about how they individually have worked through the COVID crisis, whether they've had it in their family or their community, what the impact has been on their business, what the impact of COVID has been in places like Tinker Air Force Base or Fort Sill, where missions continue to be conducted under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Obviously, the pandemic hit different parts of the economy in different ways. Some areas have done unbelievably well. If you're in the home building business, I haven't talked to a home builder whose business isn't up 20 or 25%. Automobile sales, after taking an initial hit, have done extremely well. On the other hand, obviously, if you're in the restaurant business, the travel business, the leisure business, it's been an extraordinarily difficult time for you. It's been interesting for me to hear about the programs that have worked. As I talk to small business people in particular, the so-called PPP program, Paycheck Protection Program, has really probably helped literally thousands of small businesses survive and work their way through it. Quite frankly, if it weren't for the Oklahoma banking industry and particularly community banks and credit unions in particular, this would have been a lot different. You know, the Small Business Administration only loans out about $25 billion a year, and at the height of the pandemic, the government was making loans of over $25 billion a day, the forgivable loans to small businesses so they could keep their workforces intact. I've talked to any number of businesses that was really the difference as to whether or not they made it through or not. We've also talked to, again, a lot of our state and local governments, and there was, of course, major relief for both those areas, and I can't tell you it was perfect or everything worked without a hitch, but the dollars made a difference in making sure that vital services continued to be offered to people. I guess what struck me most of all is just the sheer decency and supportiveness of Oklahomans for one another. You heard story after story about how families looked after their neighbors. People checked on senior citizens that might not be able to go out. Communities worked together to provide for their most vulnerable. Contributions to food banks are up. All sorts of things where the really spirit of the people, of the average American to try and help a friend or a neighbor or community through a crisis really brought out the best of us. I won't pretend there haven't been a lot of sad stories too, obviously, of people that we lost along the way, families that were touched by tragedy, but the isolation has led to a lot of problems as well. Sad to say that suicides are up, drug addiction, alcohol abuse up, depression up. Been a very difficult time, and we're going to be dealing with those problems, honestly, for some considerable time to come. Particularly pleased and impressed to tell you how many of our schools stayed open from August really right through to today. That took a lot of dedication by staff and teachers, a lot of commitment by parents, but over 65% of the schools in Oklahoma never really closed down this year. And those were local decisions, as they should be. They were made by school boards and school administrators talking back and forth, but they were carried out by dedicated teachers and staff that tried to make sure that schools remained healthy and safe, and that if there were cases of COVID, that there was quarantine quickly and tracing. So I'm amazed at the resilience of our school systems and the communities that support them. And honestly, that's made it a lot easier for a lot of businesses either to stay open in difficult times or to reopen quickly, because their workers didn't need to worry about where their kids were at during the day. They were being looked after and educated in local schools all across this district. I would just tell you, while things are a little bit better, obviously we've got vaccine use, and unusually for Oklahoma, we're one of the top 3 or 4 states in the country in the distribution of vaccines. That's a good thing. It speaks well of our state government. It speaks well, by the way, too, of our tribal governments who have their own allocations and have helped not only their citizens, but helped anybody that needed help as they've opened up their facilities and continued to help us lead the country in the rate of vaccination in Oklahoma. But don't think for a minute that the crisis is behind us. You need to continue to mask. You need to continue to social distance. You need to continue to wash your hands. You need to be cautious. But the economy's coming back, and the country's going to move ahead. So we'll have some big battles in Washington. We passed what I think was a very flawed coronavirus relief package, much too expensive, and frankly, it had a lot of things that weren't coronavirus related. We're in the middle of a debate now over an infrastructure package. We certainly need to get one. The one the president's proposed, I think, again, is unlikely to pass as written. It includes a lot of things that aren't infrastructure, but there is a genuine bipartisan desire to do more on classic infrastructure, that is roads, bridges, waterways, ports, broadband, things that really do need an additional investment. So we'll be working to try and find some common ground and see if we can go forward. With that, look forward to visiting with you again next week. Thanks for taking the time, and please be safe, keep your family safe, and good luck and God bless.